This is Mortgage Lending Mastery. Get the knowledge you need from America's mortgage mentor with more than 35 years of experience and over $1 billion in lifetime fundings. You'll learn to advance your mortgage practice quickly and efficiently. Also, be sure to check out Jen's book, Launch: How to Take Your Business to New Heights, available on Amazon. For a signed copy, contact Jen at jenduplessis.com. Now, here is certified mortgage planner and CEO of Kinetic Spark Consulting, Jen Du Plessis.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Mortgage Lending Mastery. I'm your host, Jen Du Plessis, and today I have with me Jeff VanNote. He is the mortgage quarterback, and he's also the podcast host of Deposit That. You know, I always want to say deposit this instead of deposit that. So I'm going to find out why you named it what you did, but I want to welcome you, Jeff, to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and obviously I look forward to getting both of our podcasts aired maybe on the same day. We'll do that pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Well, we'll have to figure that one out. So this is a podcast swap, which is fun. But even before that, we had the opportunity to meet each other and said, hey, we need to have each other on each other's podcast. So I had the wonderful privilege of coming into New York City after an event I was at and, record in a studio with you. And now here we are on Zoom. My version of it.
So, here we are.
There we are. So, Jeff, would you mind sharing a little bit about your history? I know you're not producing anymore, as a mortgage loan originator, and you're out in the world, coaching people and guiding people and making your mark. So tell us about how that transition happened, and then we'll start getting into some of the things we want to talk about today.
Yeah. So, when I got into the business when I was young, 18, 19, 20 years old, I saw things being done so inefficiently. And to take you back to when I got into the business, like the iPod just turned into the iPhone. The BlackBerry was, the Bible, the be all end all for business in general. And I think Obama had just gotten elected. So that's when I first got into the business. And, I saw people just doing things so inefficiently, and it was people that were, copying files still, and people that were literally charging 2 or 3 points at the day of closing. Like, hey, tell the client they're getting 5.25%, no points. And then next day they go to closing and it's 5.25 and 2 points or 3 points.
Right.
And I'm like, is this really what this business is? And these guys are running around with big old smiles on their faces. And I'm like,
raking in the money. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't think this is right. And I'm like, I think my real, true purpose is to change the way business is done, specifically in the mortgage business. But you can't change something until you fully understand the A to Z. And,
right.
The market, as we experienced 08 and 09, and then 10 and 11 were kind of that unknown. And then 12, Dodd-Frank came about. And then, the aftermath of Dodd-Frank and regulation and TRID. And it was kind of like always another hurdle to get over. Just when you think you got the business figured out, something changed. You had to relearn something or implement some type of new rule or guideline. So I had to do all that. And then finally in 2017, when I was like, all right, I think it's safe to kind of, take everything I learned, step away from the originating side of the business and develop some tools or concepts or platforms that everyone eventually one day will be able to implement into their own business.
Yeah. No, I love that. And as you're walking through that, one who would be listening would going, yeah, so why am I staying in this business? Because there's all these hurdles, right? But, I can say that after my career, of 35 years, that it's kind of like a drug, right? It becomes a drug. We whine and complain about the changes and the shifts and all that, but we don't leave. We're still there. And because it's such a great industry to be in, and of course it had to go through the morph of moving into technology, at a slower pace. It certainly wasn't first to market. And, that's kind of what happened. So now we are, right? We're here in the market. You're not originating anymore and you're helping people move their businesses forward as well. And so I want to talk a little bit about passion. And you and I had talked a little bit beforehand about it. This is a hot topic for me as well, because I think that one of the challenges that I see with so many people in sales, whether they're realtors, a solopreneur, because a lot of our listeners are solopreneurs as well, and, as well as lenders, is that we lack the passion behind it. And I know it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse to say, what's your why? My coach says, what's your what? Right? He has a whole different concept on it. What is it that you do that makes you different and special and unique? And, so what's your what? And, it gets back to really, where is your passion? What thrills you? What fulfills you? What makes you happy? As to really understanding why you're in the business that you're in, so that all of your decisions are based on chasing this passion, right? If it's not, you aren't in this business just to make money. That's not a passion. That's just a means to an end, right? So let's talk about that a little bit and tell us what your thoughts are around passion and mindset before we get into any tactical piece of it, because it doesn't make any sense if you don't have your head on straight. We can't move forward.
So I agree. Passion is probably the driving force behind any successful endeavor, right? Passion or creativity. And I think passion comes in different levels. So like I've always been passionate about sports, right? Then you go a step below that surface and say, well, why am I passionate about sports? And I've been doing this, whole self-discovery for the past 2.5 years. When you leave a business where you're making a lot of money, people are going to call you crazy. And I always say I am crazy, right? But I want to understand why I am crazy. And I get a Facebook message last night at 11 o'clock from a lady who was never actually a client. And it took me back down memory lane. And in 2008, turning into 2009, I was entering my final, what would have been semester in college. I had already been cut from the football team. I had already been in the mortgage business for a year plus now. I got approached by a group that was trying to help a wounded warrior, a wounded Army veteran who was over in, I believe, Iraq, and a bomb went off and the shrapnel blew through his head, and he had shrapnel literally sticking out of his head. It had to be medevac back to Washington, D.C., and he was completely paralyzed, couldn't speak, lost all functional movement. And I tell this story because I forgot about stories like this. And we wound up going through the whole 203K loan process, and the deal actually never closed. And the deal didn't close because the VA delayed his disability income, which is tax-free, was going to be like $90,000 a year, for 2 years because they didn't deem him permanently disabled, right?
Right.
Now I'm sitting here as a 22-year-old kid, a senior in college, and I have this United States veterans future housing in my hand. And I was able to bring my creativity in, use the 203K loan to properly construct a ramp and special, bedding and features for the house, which 203K allows,
right,
in order to really make an impact. And they shut down highways in New York City. They did a full-on parade, police cars, ambulances were paving the way. And my passion is to help people. Deep down, truly, my passion is to help people. And I think sometimes in the mortgage business, we forget why we're in the mortgage business, and the rewarding factor that is you're truly helping people and making a difference. And it's funny. So the lady reached out to me last night, not to just say hello, but she's like, my son needs a mortgage. And I don't know anybody else that I would trust to help my son get his first mortgage. And I'm like, listen, I can do residential mortgages anymore. And I haven't seen this lady in person since 2008 and 9.
right.
So for somebody to reach back out after 10 years, and yes, we're friends on social media and Facebook, and that shows you the power of that. But that was the type of impact, even at 22 years old, that I made on someone's life, and I think, that's really what fuels me, and seeing people come back to me really for that expert advice and opinion helps separate myself from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, I love that. And, that story reminds me of, a similar story, not to that degree, but, we do have several clients that we're now doing their children's loans and their, investments, and we continue to do theirs over and over again, or as they move and transition, when they have their life events. And those types of clients, are just, well, they're a dime a dozen, right? And it's not that we can see them all the time.
Yeah.
But when you can create that, I think that's really powerful. And so when you're talking about passion and you're talking to someone who says, yeah, I can't really find my passion. My passion is just, I want to make money. I want to make money. And actually I had someone say that. I said, what's your passion? I was teaching a class once for realtors, and and people were coming up with all different kinds of things, and someone in the back said money, making money. And I said, well, it's actually not making money. Money is the way to get there. And he actually got up and left.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
And that's okay. You can leave.
Yeah.
That's all right. Yeah. Because we want to make money, but it's money to serve the passion, right? It's to have more homes if that's what you want, or to do more charity work, or to spend more time with your family on vacations. That's just a stepping stone to get to what really is important. So help us walk us through, how do we find our passion? We're sitting there, we're saying, okay, I don't really know if I have a passion. How do I find it?
I think, when your heart and soul are aligned in something, your body lets you know, or your gut lets you know, or your brain does. And it's tough. I mean, it's not something that's easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And part of, the struggle that I've been working on is, how do you tell someone, keep your passion separate from your profitability, right? Because if you're passionate about it and you make it work and you're not profitable, you may lose your passion for something, right? Coming from an athletic background. And then oppositely, it's like, well, if you could figure out how to make your passion profitable, right?
Yeah.
Now this is awesome. So I'll tell a funny story. So, and not many people know this, it's actually kind of funny. So it's actually not funny, but funny. When I broke my ankle.
Is it funny or is it not funny, Jeff? I'm confused.
So it's funny. It's funny for me knowing the story, right? And it's going to be funny for the people that hear it if you know it. But it's not funny like how it all happened, right?
Yeah.
And it was a wake up call. So last year when I broke my ankle, I had 4 businesses, all of which were 100% reliant on myself to generate that business. Now, yes, I had a support team. Yes, I had operations. Yes, I had people on the back end. But if you don't have the gas to pour into the funnel is just sitting there not being used. And when I broke my ankle, I was laid up for over 6 weeks in excruciating pain. My ankle swelled up so bad that I couldn't leave the couch. I couldn't walk. I had to delay surgery 10 days because it was that bad swelling. The doctor wouldn't even cut into it. And I realized at that point, the only thing I had were my fingers and my mind, right? Yeah. And my mind was battling pain back and forth. So I'm a big sports guy, and I got into like flipping and investing in sports cards again, So like back in the day, I'm sure your kids like bought football cards or baseball cards or basketball cards, and that kind of fell out off the mainstream for like 20 years.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I need to find a business that I don't need to speak to people in order to be able to make money. And I was looking at my portfolio of cards earlier. I'm up like, I don't know, 240% in a year on the cards that I bought from last year. So, I was able to take a passion, which is sports, like watch games, see who's playing well, invest in the cards like they're a stock, and then eventually sell them for more money.
Right.
But again, I was able to incorporate my passion into a profitable standpoint. If my ankle didn't break, I never would have done that. So I never would have thought, like I'll never have to like go off my feet for 6 weeks. And I think that's a good lesson for everyone in the mortgage business, that what are you going to do if you have that rainy day fund aside, like God forbid car accident, or you need surgery, or you have a hip replacement or a knee. You can't walk because whatever God forbid happens to you, you're back. And how are you going to still be able to living if you're laid up on a couch?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's a really good question. I mean, I think that a lot of people are singular revenue driven, right? Not multiple lines of revenue. And it's something to think about, is what other lines of revenue could I at least start? And you and I were laughing about it when we were in New York, about the fact that we have these multiple businesses, which is, people think we're just crazy.
Yeah.
But it's not really that it's the businesses, it's that we have these multiple streams of income, so that if one is, at a low point, or one's at a high point, we have options available to us. So, so now do you still have your card business? Is that one of your businesses?
So, look, now that I'm back on my feet, like it's very challenging to keep up with it. When you're laying in front of a TV for 6 to 8 weeks, all you have to do research and like all that stuff. I have the ones that I purchased. I very rarely buy any more unless I really, really like a player. But I made a significant investment, almost 6 figures into it, believe it or not. So, we'll see where it goes as time goes on. But I'm a believer that, if you know for sure something's going to keep going up, don't sell it and take the immediate profit, right? So that's kind of my mindset. I still watch it on a daily basis. I still more so look at highlights or statistics after a game. And who knows? I mean, look, at the end of the day, it could grow to $1 million. It could stay at, what I bought it at, but it's more of a fun thing to, still be incorporated into the sports world and, mix my passion with, profit.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the passion for someone, who's listening and they're saying, I don't even know where to start. Do I take a day off? Do I talk to people and say, hey, what do you think makes me look happy? Do I just write down, that I love looking at butterflies? What are some of the tactics that you have your clients go through to really discover their passion?
I would say the first thing is you can probably think of 10 people off your head. You ever hear somebody say like, oh, I always wanted to do that, And I'm always like, well, do it.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that's crazy, like, hey, I want to swim across the Atlantic Ocean, I would not advise to do that. But if it's something that, that soul cycle class, or hey, I want to or try it, do it. I think the other thing is really opening your circle up to different like-minded people, meaning like driven people, but maybe in a different profession, or strategic people that are working with technology, or strategic people that are working with farmland, or whatever it might be. I mean, you might want to, grow your own nursery and get into that, or you might get into the spiritual world and start meditating. But unless you try so many different things, you're not going to know really what you like and don't like. And you might think you like something and you do it and you might not. So I think, again, trying different things, but I also think it's always good to have like a buddy system.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's one way to start discovering, the different passions that you have. Now, how do those passions marry into business?
It's a great question. I mean, I think it's funny. I took one of my properties off the market, and up here, once you take a property off market, your phone just rings nonstop with cold calling from realtors. I'm talking to this lady for 30 minutes. She's a new agent, stuff together. She came from like the corporate world, and passion. Well, I come from a corporate background, and I did X, Y, and Z. I'm like, look, I'm 2014 through 2016. I played on 7 different softball teams, played over 140 games a year. And every year I averaged between $100,000 and $200,000 of closed business just from my softball teams that I went, played, had fun. It was passion for me, but it was a service for them, right?
Right.
It's really incorporating something that you're good at or you're interested in, and letting that select group of people know that you're the expert in that field. So if you're in the mortgage business, hey, and we talk about dancing, I think that's when we originally met. Like if you're a dancer and you like dancing, go join dance clubs, tell people you love dancing, you dance your whole entire life, they probably can relate to that, and you're in the mortgage business. And they're gonna be like, oh my God, I love Jen, she's a dancer.
And that people don't say. Yeah.
People, I remember like believe it or not, I first started training New York City realtors when I was 25 years old in Midtown Manhattan. Like now I'm 25 years old, coming from the Bronx, training realtors in Manhattan about the mortgage business. And people were like, oh, well, I don't really want to be a realtor. I'm like, then why the heck do you have your real estate license? Like if you're keeping the fact that you're a realtor a secret, you should quit today. Because the more people that know you're in real estate, the more likely you are to get a deal. It doesn't cost anything, but they didn't have the confidence to go out there and say, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I'm a realtor. And that's what really got me into education, was getting people more confident in their craft.
Yeah, I see that a lot too, just sitting on boards at an association of realtors. I've been on the board, I've been in committees, And, there's never a lot of cross-pollination by people that, the affiliates who are on the committee. I mean, you're at the real estate board, you're on a committee. Why aren't you talking about your business? And, and I think that it's either feast or famine, maybe with lenders, and maybe realtors too, is that, we're either attacking you or we're not doing anything. And there's no in between. There's no couth in how to broach that conversation and let it happen naturally, but still be the one who's kind of edging it along or nudging it along, So if someone's listening and they're saying, okay, well, I heard you. And by the way, I have a client who's like this. We had this conversation months and months ago. She's a black belt, right? A black belt in not just karate, something else. And she said, I would never tell anybody I do that, ever. And I said, you're gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, that's not, she's cut.
And she said, well, I don't want to.
She's cutting herself to an audience that she gets.
Yeah, it's crazy. So what
you don't have to use the skills
for someone? What advice do you have for someone who wants to, say, okay, I'm hearing you, and I found my passion. I'm going to go, play softball. I'm going to play, laser tag, whatever it is. How do I, broach that conversation without sounding like, I'm only there for that purpose?
Yeah, look, I don't want to give away all my secret sauce because it's part of the program I'm going to be selling come January. But here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I've learned, and it's always been something that's worked for me. Remember, I was a ground and pound guy for a long time. Like, hit the streets, hit real estate offices. And look, if you walk into an office and you're like, "Hey, I'm here to do your mortgage business," they're going to be like, "Diamond Does thinking Joe, Carrie, Susan, and Martha were just here before you."
Yeah.
Sorry, right? So when you walk into someone's territory, whether it's their home, their office, whatever, they're probably going to have a picture or a collection of their dog, a New York Yankees jersey, a Giants helmet, a photographed picture of Bill Clinton, whatever it is, right? And you in what they're having around you. Like, for example, like, I bought my son this pumpkin, right? It's his little pumpkin. And if I walk into someone's office and I see a pumpkin that's a painted face, I would be like, oh, hey, here's my story. I just painted a pumpkin with my son, right? So you're taking what they're giving you, the secret, and you're connecting with them on something that they have that's around them. And that's how you create the interpersonal relationship.
Yeah.
People fail to do that because they're only worried about getting the deal.
Yeah. It's an old sales tactic, by the way. It's a very, very old sales tactic, but we don't use them. We're not in the world of, traditional sales anymore. And I think that's part of it too. And I think part of it is, to increase your heightened awareness, get your antennas up and start looking around and taking note. If someone says, oh, my birthday's next week. Oh, that's really good. Take note of that, go deeper than just the superficial, or, oh, I'm not okay today. I was just talking to my daughter this morning and she said, I'm not, I'm really worried. She's having major knee surgery next week. And she said, I'm really starting to freak out about it, and I said, oh, that's okay. You'll be okay. Do I do that? Or do I say, okay, so let's stop and just think about it. You trust your surgeons, just slow down so you can speed up the relationship rather than speeding up so that you don't have any business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point you make. And I think people make things much more complicated than they have to be. And also today's salesperson doesn't listen. Back in the day, we had to listen. Mm-hmm. Today, you're walking in, you're kind of present, you're kind of on Instagram, you're kind of on Facebook, you're kind of checking your email, and you're worried about, what you're doing for dinner later on tonight. Whereas before, people were so much more present that you had to create that human interaction. Because people don't have that or weren't trained that today, it's almost like they get around people and they freeze up, they lock up.
Yeah, I think so too. So let's transition into what you think is going to be happening in 2020. We've talked about, I know that you and I talked on our podcast as well about digital and, the thought around, and I'm a believer that I don't feel that anyone's job is going to be taken away because of the internet, but I feel that you will lose your job if you don't bring the internet and bring social media and bring technology into your business. So help us understand, some of the thoughts that you have around that and some advice that you might want to give to someone who's listening about, how to take some action in that arena if they've not done it so far, or or grow it if they need to.
So I'm going to use the analogy of like Earth and the sun, right? And I think the sun rotates around Earth. I'm pretty sure. I definitely failed that class in school, but the people in the mortgage business are Earth, and I'm the sun that kind of orbits around. So I get close enough not to get burned or burn anybody, and I hear everything. I watch everything. I see everything, right? And kind of how I've always been. I never worried about what I was doing. But my ears are always open, right? And I'm always listening. I do believe investors and realtors are safe, call it for the next 3 to 5. I mean, there will be still some need, and will be more bigger need for it gets worse, right? Because you're going to know best online lending system, but banks don't want to. They're going to get off and improve for maybe one or two little silly, like your debt ratio is 44 and it's supposed to be 43. You almost need a human to say, well, let's get you to 42.99, or income credit score is 620, 618. How do you get over 620? So that's really more where the advisory and the advice comes in, and someone who knows the business will always have some value. The question is, how much is it willing to pay for that value? And are they going to use you for your value and then go back to the digital mortgage concept at the end anyway? I truly believe people need a much bigger personal brand presence because they're able to attract the right consumer. I can't tell you how many deals I closed for my private hard money, and investment business from Instagram. The people I've never met, but follow me for years. They like me, they message me, and they literally hand me their deal, and it costs me nothing other than basically just putting content out there that I believe is valuable. And I'm always like, well, if I'm going through this or someone's calling me with this question, there has to be one other person in the universe that needs to know about or wants to know about this and might find this interesting.
Yeah.
And I post it. And I think people need to get much more secure with, who they are as people, and especially more secure with who they are as a professional. And if people do that, they will keep it as true.
Yeah. As you're talking about that too, it's also taking action right now. I mean, now is the time. Your future is a series of nows, right? So what are you doing now to secure your future? And, and I hear you talking about, posting things, but it took some time, right? You didn't just post and all of a sudden the whole world came to you. You had to start creating that brand, that says, oh, this is what his message is. I wonder if he has something new to say today. And I want to hear what he has to do and, get ideas. And so it takes some time to develop that, and whether it's 3 months or 6 months or 2 years, sometimes you'll get that one opportunity that just pops in, but generally it's going to take some time to do it. So, waiting for the Chicken Little story, right? I mean, waiting for the world to fall down and then taking action is going to be to your detriment, I think, no matter what business you're in.
I agree. And so just to give you feedback, so the average person that messages me on Instagram starts with, love your stuff. I've been following you for about a year or so.
Yeah.
Reverse, right? If someone comes to you first, you're in control.
Yeah.
If you go to somebody a lead, you're in control, right? Because it's out to them, now they know they have you. So it kind of reversed the script on how, these lead buying companies that operate. And again, if someone reaches out to me, have a time or a consulting fee or advisory fee, something from it, Jenny reaching out for true help and confident enough to do so. And I think that that's that important number to keep in mind, where in today's world, it's going to take you a year to get somebody to trust you, most likely. And if you go with expectation, be grateful because you just process by 50%.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty interesting about that. And I do think, there's so much distraction right now. And, chasing anything and everything that might work and not just sticking to one or two things with some kind of tenure to see if it really is going to work, And there's a saying, I don't know, I can't remember where it was, but, and I think it's Warren Buffett, but it's, is that most people quit, or maybe it's Abraham Lincoln. Most people quit right before they're about to succeed.
Yep.
Right. And,
And that's true. Look, and that's easy.
mhm.
It's like, man, I've been doing this all along. I've been doing this all along. Like, you know what? Another opportunity came up that I could settle for. Let me just go back to that. And meanwhile, they're literally, one email or phone call away from getting big ticket, everything that they worked for. So, you gotta be honest. Like, I've been there. I've been there multiple
We all
times.
have. We've all done it. Yeah, we've all done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's tough. And I think, again, as times change, it makes it that much easier to throw in the towel because there's so much, again, noise and outside pressure that's like, well, why am I not doing this? Why am I not doing what Joe's doing or whatever? And it just it makes it for a very interesting. And I think people really need to focus on, doing the thing always and being patient. And if you're deserving of it, it'll come. If you haven't gotten what you're looking for yet, maybe you're not doing it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's interesting too, because it's all about that comparison. It's constantly comparison. And, saying, oh, I have a lot of competition. Not really. You're just comparing yourself to them. Right. And that's a
Correct.
blue ocean strategy, right? That's just the mindset
Correct.
of having a blue ocean strategy. So let's talk about the market itself. Not about your branding, your passion, which leads to your brand and the digital market and everything. But what do you see as happening, going forward in the market? And what advice do you have for people that are listening?
I personally, myself, would not buy any real estate for the next 18 months just because of the uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
But just the common sense, like Apple stock went to like 250 in a month or two, right? That
Yeah.
it higher, but it just up 20% 30 days, which is unheard of, right? It has to pull back. Nothing goes straight.
Right.
Uncertainty with the election and with uncertainty around Airbnb, for example, and rent regulations, specifically in our market here in New York City and New Jersey. There's a lot of unknowns. What I tell you is, I got a call last week from a lady who owes 15 years across two investment companies in a hard money deal. And case scenario, he underwrote those investment cash flow standpoint. At best case scenario, those are $18 million deals combined. So she owes 15 million into 18 million. We didn't do the initial deal, trying to help her out. And she's under the impression the real estate's worth 27.5 million because appraisals from last year. So 1 year, someone put on paper 27.5 million, and based on today's current economic factor, it's only worth 18 million. So in general, people are feeling the finance boom that's happened, every year now for the past 3-4 years. And you're at a breath of fresh air, and your person that's on a regular fixed income that doesn't have a hustle or 4 jobs or a husband or wife that makes a lot of money, they're really feeling the squeeze. And that is what America in business, right?
Right.
And if interest rates go up, we saw fourth quarter of last year, the market stopped. Rates went almost to 5% high up, and then they plummeted rates again.
Mm-hmm.
From a macro point, I don't like single family home real estate. It's real estate, so there will always be a good deal to be had. But again, if a home is worth $500,000 with rates being at 3% and rates go to 4%, in a perfect world, like the cost to borrow the money goes up, the value of the asset has to come down. And that's my rule. I made that rule up. I did it. Someone a lot smarter than I did made that up probably hundreds of thousands a year. But I also think real estate, owning a home still comes with pride. and you're creating your kingdom, you're creating your territory, you're giving your family something, an asset to own. And I always recommend it from a pride standpoint, but I don't believe you should look at your primary resident home as an asset. And I don't think you should look at it as a liability. I think you should look at it as a place to call home, and just that, take the business out of it. If you make money on it, great. If you are going to lose money on it, just don't sell it and don't move. And then eventually when the market, gets strong again, you'll probably sell it and, walk away with some money. But in general, my outlook on real estate is not great overall.
Yeah, we're in that same position. We just sold a bunch of condos, got out of the condo market, and we sold some townhouses too. Just to get out of the market right now. These were properties that, were prime for Airbnb, but now the market is changing and there's so much resistance for single family, units, condos, townhomes, that type of thing, to be rented out as Airbnbs. And there's such a big push now back from the counties that, we felt, this is not the right time to have that type of investment. We've wanted to get rid of these for a while. We want to sort of turn in our houses to make them hotels like Monopoly, right? And
Sure.
and that's really been the game for us lately is that kind of thing. But we've kind of held off on doing anything else. Okay, we're holding our cash and we're just waiting.
Yeah, I think you, like many people, are going to do that. It's the fear of the unknown, right? And I had like top New York City lenders have 0 purchase mortgage loans in our pipeline. Our pipeline is 100% refinances, and those were 4 of the time. So if these top 4 guys, right, are saying that, they're top guys and they have no purchase business, it's only a tall tale sign, right? And usually what happens in Manhattan first, so you're dealing with bigger ticket size. So if the upper echelon, top 2-3%ers are feeling a downward trend, that's passed on everywhere else.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that too, because it concerns me for people that are doing really well this year because rates are low. They're not doing well because they did anything different in their business. They just happen to be getting a lot of business because rates are low. Happen to be getting, having their clients call them, because I know statistically most loan officers, as much as we've talked about it, do not communicate with their clients after closing. So, and I say most, I'm not going to give a number because it's not really a number, but it's everybody I talked to. I was just speaking at an event and there were 40 some people in there. I said, honestly, who of you have reached out to your clients? Not they've called you, who's reached out to your client? And only 3 people raised their hand. And I said, and are you honest? And one person put their hand down, right? And so if purchases go away and refis stay there, but you haven't communicated with your database, then how are you going to get your business? How much money have you left on the table this go around by not communicating with your database? So what are you telling your clients to prepare them for this potential new market?
So just in a worst case scenario in the world, if you buy a house today for $600,000 and you put that 3.5%, and then for whatever reason you want to go and sell that house in this market, by the time you pay the real estate commission, you're probably going to be negative. You're probably going to have to be bringing money to the table, right? Yeah, losing and maybe breaking even at best. So I'm like, look, if you're buying now, buy something that has a chance to appreciate. So maybe don't go for that, be all end all home. Maybe go with your little starter home for $350,000 or $400,000 or whatever, a medium level house is in the area demographic you're in, and start there, because the higher up you go, the bigger there is a fall, right? And people still need affordability. People need to afford properties. So when I look at properties, even on loans that we personally do with our own capital, and what can I rent this property at? 2 bedroom is going for $3,000 now. Well, what if 2 bedrooms are down $2,200? Well, I'm then going to underwrite that loan from point saying, okay, I don't care $1,000 out because that 3,000 can go overnight with all the new inventory coming to market. But again, give people that, okay, are you buying this as an investment or are you buying it as a primary? And if you buy it as a primary, keep it for 10 years, you're going to make out, at least you're going to make out on the tax deductions, right? And that's kind of where I tell them, hey, this is the best advice. But people get mad at me for telling the truth. I'm like, look, I have a rent where I live. I thought that what we're seeing now was going to happen in 2018. So I entered into a rent to own with my landlord. If I didn't close anytime, I'm going to make X amount of dollars for my place, put an $80,000 payment, have a higher payment for my mortgage, taxes, and condo fee. I'd rather pay like $24.77 a month in rent and keep the $80,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
Right. Like what I do now, again, I've gotten lucky where the market's continuously up, but it could have gone in the opposite direction, or I need that cash for something else. And I just think that people become too emotional in the process. If I'm buying a home, that they literally throw a lot of the facts out the window. That's why it really takes a true professional like yourself, or like somebody who's been in the business and has seen cycles, to give people the full, honest opinion and evaluation based on their personal financial situation, not an online lender that's giving them the lowest rate. And that's where I think we separate ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I also think it's important as mortgage professionals, as title reps, it doesn't matter, real estate agents, that we're investing in real estate as well for our future, and I always thought it was funny that when a client says to a realtor, hey, is this a good time to buy? And the realtor says, oh, it's a great time to buy. They're not buying, but they think you should, right?
They've never bought a home before either.
Right. Yeah. I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. So I think that it's really important for us to be investing in the product that we're actually selling. And if you can't do it by yourself because you just don't have the wherewithal, then get a couple buddies together. I mean, do some buddy home buying for investment properties and create a venture, so that you joint venture so that you guys can learn through that process. So I think that's a really good message, going forward. So let me kind of change gears here and ask you about your podcast, Deposit That. And I know what the answer is because I've been on the podcast, but tell us how this all kind of came about and where the passion came in creating a podcast that could help people.
So I wanted to do a podcast 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago, and I couldn't think of a name, right? I think like the name itself would be catchy, or people have to be like, I get that. And then once you figure out the name, you have to figure out how to incorporate it as like your subject or thesis. So it was like probably middle of June. Now I'm still recovering from my ankle surgery. I try and run, on the football field as much as possible. Painful with the plates and screws. I was standing on the sideline where I spent all of my college career standing on the sideline. I figured I'd go back there, right? And I'm like, oh my God, Deposit That. And then I was like, that's it. That's the podcast name. So I had previously been on a friend's podcast who's in education, and it was a plug and play studio. So like literally you were there, you show up.
Yeah. Show up and you become a studio.
That's it, and I'm all about simplicity. Like I like to learn things, but I like to stick to what I know and let the professionals handle what they handle. And I was like we said earlier, people forget that old school sales tactic. And I'm a big believer, and I get guilty of it. People want to try and recreate the wheel, but when you really get back down to the foundation of back to basics, that's what it is. And I know from my own personal struggles of trying to implement 7 to 10 different changes in my life with for 20 years. So concept Deposit That means I just want you to listen to one episode and hear one takeaway from the episode that you kind of resonated with, that you liked, that you admired, and implement that into your memory bank.
Yep.
And you're done, and that's where it came from. But it was funny. So the lady that was on a couple weeks ago wrote, and she wrote in the book, Deposit This. And I was like, oh, I kind of like that. That's kind of like the female version of it. Deposit that for a male, deposit this for a female, But yeah, it's catchy. I'll be at a sports bar on Sundays, watching games, whatever, and I'll be walking by and people are like, deposit that. And I'm like, you know about that? They're like, no. I'm like, all right, we'll go check out the podcast. So I feel like I'm like a walking billboard. With a catchy tagline.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because I'd never really heard that phrase. I mean, I deposit this, I get it, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a girl thing. I don't know what it is, but no, I love it. And, so the whole concept is to listen to your podcast and get one or two nuggets that you could deposit, into your business right away. You could deposit into a parking lot to use, when you feel the time is right, but you don't want to forget the idea or the concept, to help move your business forward. So I absolutely love that. So how do we get a hold of you? I know we definitely, listen to Deposit That. You're on a podcast listening to it now. So look up Deposit That and, subscribe and listen to an episode or two and give, Jeff a 5-star rating and a great review, and do the same for us, right? For this podcast as well. But you also have your coaching company.
If you like it, 5-star.
Yeah, thank you. You have the mortgage coach. So give us a high level review or not review, but overview as we kind of end our podcast time today. About what your perfect client is.
Yeah, I think everyone needs a client, and I'm a big believer there's also need coaches, and sometimes coaches come from unknown places. And going with the mindset that you can learn something from everyone, we could all be each other's coach. I could coach you on this topic, you can coach me on that topic. One day I'll be the player, you're going to be the coach, and then we're going to reverse roles. I work very efficiently. I cut right to the chase, right? A lot of coaches like to say, hey, you need to sign up for a year program. You need to pay me $1,000 a month. I'm like, look, one session, it's $275. It's a minimum an hour. As long as you're honest and transparent with me, we're going to get more out of it. I don't really need to do another, coaching session with you. I'm going to tell you what I hear, tell you what you're telling me, give you one or two things to tweak, and come back to me when you've either mastered that or when you realize that you're mastering that, right? But you can't give someone coaching and expect them to implement it the next day. It doesn't work that way, And it's almost like you have to give them that shot and then let them play it out on their own. So, your average person that I coach is somebody that wants to go from making $50,000 to $75,000 in the mortgage or real estate world and have a record year, or become a better brand, or deliver a more clean message. A lot of people want to have this lavish brand, but they don't have the experience to back it up. And I'm like, look, you could only share other people's posts for so long before, all you are is like a news reporter. You know what I mean? Like, come up. My goal for people is don't share my stuff. Like, read my stuff and formulate your own opinion on it. If I wanted to get a parrot or a puppet, I'd buy 100 of them. I don't want parrots. I don't want puppets. I don't want followers. I want more leaders. And my goal is to make somebody who's currently a follower a leader in their own right. And look, most of my coaches that I have, I don't consider them coaches. I don't consider them mentors. They're all from different walks of life. They're just people that I really respect. And I know they're going to tell me what's best for the overall situation. I think that's where a lot of coaches fail.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, wonderful. So we'll have that link there. So if someone wants to reach out to you and have a conversation, they can certainly have a conversation. And as we close out, let me ask you this: a favorite quote or a book that you're reading or a book that you have read that has changed your mindset. Let's talk about mindset today. So a book that you've read that has changed your mindset, or one of your favorite quotes that you live by that someone could take as a nugget from this episode.
I'm going to answer both of those. I'm going to go 2 for 2 for you. I'm like the Washington Nationals. We'll win the World Series with this one.
Yes, I know, and that's in my hometown, baby.
First book that I recently read. I have to give that a shout out. So I just read the book Think and Grow Rich. I didn't read it. I listened to the audiobook 5 times in the past 3.5 weeks, which is crazy. I just had it on replay, sleeping subconsciously, and I sat down every day and listened to 1 to 4 chapters and took notes. I actually have my Think and Grow Rich notebook here, right? So that's definitely something I think people need to implement and actually listen to and take notes. And my favorite quote came from a new friend who's also a big NFL athlete trainer. He's actually coming up here to New York City, flying him up here. He's staying with me for 4 days. He's going to train me 2 days for free. And his quote is, "Easy work is worthless." And when he said that to me, it kind of completely hit home. Like, people that are just showing up to work, doing the easy stuff and leaving and passing the challenging or creative stuff to somebody else. when you really dig down and say, if you work worth, it's like you work, you've already done it. So why not challenge yourself? Why not push yourself to take on the hard you can learn and better yourself and become more evolved as a person? I think that's really, really, a really good quote that fits into this podcast.
Yeah, it totally does. Totally does. Easy work is worthless. It's just mundane, right? It's mundane.
Simple, right?
It doesn't move you forward. It doesn't make, like I said, your future is a series of nows, right? And so if you're just doing, worthless work, that's what your future is going to be. Right? Well, it's been wonderful, Jeff. Thank you so much for taking time to, join us today and to give us some of your wisdom and your advice, for finding our passion, for creating some mindset around that, and which then leads to our brand, and then talking to us about, some tactics that we could use for next year to move our business forward, along with your thoughts on what's going on in the marketplace so that we can be better prepared for next year and beyond. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Happy to have you.
Honored to be on here.
Yeah, of course. I love talking to you. So listen, again, thank you everybody for listening in. Please take a few moments to give us a 5-star review, write a review or a 5-star rating and write a review for us. And keep those comments coming to me in LinkedIn and Facebook messages. I love hearing what you're learning in the podcast and how it's moving your business forward. And again, if you want an opportunity to have a conversation with me, please feel free to click on the link below and you will be able to schedule a time to chat with me, and let's see what we can do to help your business grow forward. Again, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will catch you next time on Mortgage Lending Mastery.
Thank you for listening to Mortgage Lending Mastery. Looking to streamline and launch your practice by accessing Jen's tools, courses, classes, presentations, and resources? Visit JenDuPlessis.com to learn about the features and benefits thousands of other professionals have experienced by enrolling in Jen's lifetime membership program. Isn't it about time you consider a coach to take your business to new heights? Contact Jen to start your application process today. Thanks again, and be sure to tune in next week.